See if we're in camera. Ah, we made it.
there.
All right. Let's see. Are you adjusting my
I gotta
lighting?
get the good light on me.
There is Scott. All right. So the email did go out this morning. That's a positive direction. All right. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if I can back this up anymore. I was half thinking, I don't know if we can back up. Like we can back up, but then I can't do
No,
like
this is
yeah,
fine.
this is fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll make it
I've
work.
got my notebook here. Can everybody hear us? Can you hear Duncan okay? No?
Hi.
You have to talk first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll speak up.
Okay, good. Because this is my fancy dancy new microphone.
Nice.
And so it should pick everything up because I paid money for it to do that. All right. Hello, everybody. We are live and in person, straight from Allie's office. And I apologize for being a couple of minutes late. I had to close like 75 tabs. So
It was closer to 300
it was
tabs.
not 300 tabs. It was
maybe
nearly
400 tabs.
nearly 75 tabs. I counted them. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today in our my last call from Florida, not your last call from Florida, but my last from Florida. We're going to be talking about mistakes that we see business owners make, including mistakes that we have made ourselves in our business. So I don't know, we just jump right into it.
Yeah, we'll do it live.
All right, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. That's the part you guys don't hear every time we do a podcast. Like, no, what I usually say, Duncan, are you ready? And then Duncan says,
I have never been more ready for anything in my entire life. I'm so ready right now. And then she laughs and shakes her head and then clicks.
and then I click record.
Yes.
That's how every single podcast starts. Okay, so we each have 5 things on our list. We're going to go back and forth. If we have time, we'll get all 10. If we don't have time, then you'll get as many as what we got time for, because we got a giant 26-foot truck in the driveway that we're going to be loading here in a few minutes. So we are not going to go too far over time if we can help it. Okay, so the biggest mistakes that we see business owners make and that we also make ourselves. The first one that I put on my list was being too optimistic. As I have Duncan sitting here, who is like the king of optimism in his business, and I was as well. When I was younger, I was very optimistic about the capability, my capabilities, and also the capability of the business that I created. So we started the rabbit toy business. And I'm like, it's $1 million business. Like, we're going to make $1 million selling rabbit toys from our garage, right? And we even went to, we drove to Nashville, Tennessee to present to Tractor Supply Company for our rabbit toys, having no idea what we were doing, which was cool. You know, like we got out of our comfort zone and we went and did stuff. But then not long after that, we started a used bookstore. And I did not see the folly of the used bookstore until we had to close the store, get out of a lease, get threatened to be sued for the lease. I visited a bankruptcy lawyer just to see what we could do. We never actually filed for bankruptcy, but I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he said, so what was your business? And I said, we had a used bookstore. And he laughed and he said, how does your landlord think he's going to get any money from you? You had a used bookstore. You don't have any money. And that was the first moment that after 5 years of having that used bookstore, that I really realized that I was way too optimistic going into that business. And I didn't actually know what numbers were even feasible. You know, selling $2 and $5 books sounds like, oh, it's such a great deal. Like everybody's going to come. But in reality, it was a used bookstore that sold $2 and $5 books. And we had a huge space because books take a lot of room. And I had so much optimism and I had so much kind of belief in myself that I could make this happen, that I was smart enough to make this happen, that I was going to like I was going, not even the exception, because I don't think I even realized at the time that like it was a bad business model. But just that I could make it happen. I'm going to make it happen. I know that I can make this happen.
I think inherently though, like that belief it's not wrong. It's just pointed in like the wrong direction. It's like
I agree.
focused on the wrong thing. And the thing that I've heard, that's an answer to that, or not an answer, but like the advice that I've heard people give is that every business is going to take the same amount of effort and
Yes.
like blood, sweat, and tears. And like you should, if you're gonna do it, like go for the biggest opportunity that
Yes.
fits your lifestyle, right?
Yep.
And like it's hard to see the label from inside the jar,
Yes.
right? It's like when you're doing the used bookstore, it's hard to see that, and you have that belief in yourself that you can make it big, but you have to be objective and you have
Right.
to be rational about the scalability, like how big can it actually get?
Exactly. And that's where I got stuck,
Yeah.
is that I couldn't be objective about it. I was so excited about, because I love books, right? And I leaned into the thing that I love. And same with the rabbit toy business. I leaned into the thing that I love. I love animals. I love the pet industry. I'm going to lean into that. We're going to make something happen there. And I love books. And so I was so optimistic. And so I was so much more concerned about what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
like that sounded like fun for me, that I wasn't able to be objective and see that this is actually not feasible. And that's where I ultimately got to, is if I've got only so many hours in the day
Mhm.
and I can only do so much, then I have to optimize the amount of money that I can make in that period of time. And selling $2 and $5 books that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting now that we're talking about this. Like I've known about that business for a long time, but we haven't really spoken about it in this context. I had a similar experience with one of my first businesses, which was breeding and selling snakes to pet stores and individuals that wanted pet snakes. And I was doing it in high school, and I had like 200, 300 snakes in my mom's house. There were like snakes in the kitchen, snakes just all over this house. And it was the same thing. Like I could only grow so much in those circumstances, and it was what I was passionate about, and it was what I thought I wanted to do because it was what I was passionate about. It's like I can make it happen, I can do this. And it got to the point that I couldn't grow anymore, and things were starting to fall apart because I didn't have the time and I couldn't scale. And I ended up working after that at a reptile farm that had 60 plus rooms and like outdoor space for turtles and tortoises, and just had, hundreds of thousands of animals. And I saw what it would take to have the big business and do it. And I was like, that is not what I want. That is not it.
That was the same with us with the rabbit toys. We could have scaled it and hired employees. And we've had employees throughout the years, and it was not usually a pleasant experience, and it was not something that I really enjoyed. So kind of just came to the realization that like, if we're going to grow this, the only way to grow it, and that's where we kept like not hitting our head up against the ceiling. Like we literally, I'm like, we're working all the time and yet we're not getting ahead. Why not? And part of it was we were underpriced. And so we fixed the price, and that gave us a little bit more wiggle room, but we were never going to get to $100,000 personal income in a year from the rabbit toy business. We've made $100,000 in sales in the rabbit toy business with just the two of us, but we couldn't get to that income for ourselves with the rabbit toy business without actually turning it into a full-fledged, managing people kind of business, which I am not a big fan of. So, and that's why now, I know when we talk a lot that, you've mentioned to me that I am very logical, and I'm very objective in the way that I approach things. And it's because I've had to train myself to be more logical and objective.
Sure.
Because being, chasing fireflies was not getting me where I wanted to be. And ultimately, I just got to a point where I'm like, I'm tired. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to run after things that are not going to get me where I need to go, which is why now I focus on scalable businesses. Scalable in the fact that, yes, I may need, a VA or two to get me there. But, showing up on this call, we're talking to 4 people are on this call right now instead of just talking to one. So how can I optimize my time? If I only have so much energy and I only have so much time, I want, on my handmade calls, when I do those, there's 40, 50 people that come on every time. And so I'm talking to 40, 50 people. And if we scale that up to 1,000 people, it's still no extra work on my behalf. So I've had to, you know, remove kind of the ego of this sounds like a fun business, therefore I'm going to chase it. I have to then force myself to say, but can I actually make money?
Yeah.
Or just set it aside for a hobby. So one of the things we're going to do when we go to Ohio is I love growing plants, and we'll sell some plants, but that's going to be a hobby. I have no delusion that that's a business. That's something Allie's doing on the side because it's something that I really like to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that the more that we talk about things, obviously this is the way a conversation works. Like I understand more about our opposite point of view. So my first point is that sometimes business owners can be too objective. Like you can
That's your first mistake.
That's my first mistake. Yeah. So and what I mean by that isn't too objective in the way that you're talking about. It's like, yes, you need to be realistic and rational and take the time to really think about what you're doing as far as, is this going to get me where I want to go? And that's great. But I think that a lot of business owners fall into the trap of, no, this is the way that it needs to be done because I've seen other people do it and I can't deviate. Or, you know, you put limits on yourself, on your business based on your perception of how it's supposed to be done. And I feel like you can fall into that trap. And my point about being too objective is like, you still need to be open to, I don't know. I hate to make it too like woo, but you still have to be.
I like woo.
You still have to be open to a little bit of like serendipity. Like
Sure.
you still have to be willing to go out into the world and be open to things that are outside of the scope of what you do, or
Yep.
you know, like luck and chance and all that stuff can
Nope.
still hit you. And if you're not open to it, if you're too inside your box, you won't see that when it comes your way.
I agree with that.
That's my point with that. It's like
Yeah.
too objective sounds silly, but it's like, just don't be closed off to opportunities that might be a little bit outside of what you think your business is, just because that's what people have told you your business is supposed to be. So
Yes.
that's my first mistake.
And Scott and I have talked about this before, about like, you can be, if you're 100% number crunching, you're not creative and you're not looking for new inspiration.
Yeah.
You're only going by the numbers say this, so I can only go by the numbers. But if you're 100% creative and looking for inspiration and you're never referring back to the numbers, then you're floating in the wind. I can be very creative. I have a lot of inspiration to do a lot of different things, but if I don't have numbers to back it up, and that's, I think, what I learned, you know, was actually look and crunch the numbers. And I'm not saying like do something that you hate because the numbers are better in the thing that you hate. I love what I do with the marketing. Like I love this. But I get to be creative in this, but I also have the numbers to back it up. So I think it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And it's either balance within yourself, or it's balance between like you and a business partner, or you and maybe a key employee. That one of you's got to be good with the numbers and one of you's got to have that willingness to take risks.
Yeah.
That creativity, the inspiration. And if you can have those two things within you, that's great. But if you are noticing that you're very much a numbers person and don't have the creative side, or you're very much a creative side and you don't have the number side and you don't know how to access that, I think you need people.
Yeah, and
more
than numbers too, it's like it's conscientiousness, right? So I think there's like, which is kind of a word that encompasses a lot of different things. It's like hard work, stick to itness. Like obviously we all have that here because we're business owners, but if that's not innate, like there are people that's innate for, and they're operators. So they're really good at like doing the operational stuff, running the numbers, consistent hard work. And then there's the creatives. There's people that are super open to new experience. And that's kind of the sides of the aisle that we're talking from. It's like operations versus, you know, whatever, creative inspiration.
Creative, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I would say just real quick, awareness, because if you're not aware of your strengths and weaknesses, then you're not able to get help or make sure you're building systems to focus and force yourself to do something that's not your strength. So awareness is something some people lack, and it takes time to develop. And
Yeah, that's been the biggest work I've done on myself, right? Just really being aware of, even when I go to do something, like we were just talking about how I hate talking on the phone and Duncan hates talking on the phone. Like I'd rather be on a Zoom call talking to you than on the phone. But even just that sort of stuff, I'm like, okay, why does that make me uncomfortable? Why is this better than that? Why is it that I'm procrastinating on this task that I keep pushing off? Oh my gosh, like one of the dogs just ran into the door.
They want to be on the
God,
call.
it was like King Kong breaking through or something.
No damages, I hope.
No damage to the doors, no. We just don't have the second one locked, so it like pushed them both in. Scared me. The dogs are getting a bath, so I'm sure that that was a panicked runaway by one of them. So yeah, the having super self-awareness.
Yep. It's hard when you're in the middle of it. Like that's something I've been trying to be more cognizant of lately is when I'm feeling the thing, stopping and being like, okay, what's going on? I'm good at reflecting, right? It's like hindsight, whatever.
Sure.
But it's like, why am I feeling like this before calling this person? Like, what is it that's actually making me feel anxious or whatever about talking to this person? And then analyzing it in the moment and figuring it out it's a good skill to have for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I think that leads us nicely into my second mistake is, yeah, it can be difficult to see ourselves and be aware of ourselves. And so not having a peer group, I think is how you worded it, not having business people around you that can help you through the challenges and the difficulties in your business, that can help you reflect back to you what you're not seeing.
Yeah, call you out on your stuff.
Call you out on your bullshit. And so this can come like from masterminds. It can come from having a coach or a mentor. It can come, I think this can even come from teaching other people. Because I find that, you know, when I sit and I do coaching, right? I learn so much and I'm able to apply it back to myself, just having other people. When I first started, I was very much an isolationist in that, like, I got this rugged individuality, you know, I can do this. I'm capable. I'm going to show the world that I did this all by myself. And one thing I tell my handmade clients all the time is, look, I've run a business on my own before, and I've run it with masterminds and you know, confidants and mentors and that sort of thing. And I'll never do it by myself again. I'll never do it by myself again. And I think that's a huge, huge, huge mistake, is people believing that they are an island and that they don't need other people. But Duncan quoted my quote already: when you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. There are certain things about you and your business that you cannot see, that you absolutely need somebody to point out to you. And I had that fairly, I don't want to say, so from like 2001 to 2008, I did it on my own. And then I joined a mastermind group, and I was still young and dumb. I was not smart enough to listen to them to the level in which I should have been listening. But I've taken those lessons that I've learned from them for years and years, and they've become like some of my, Mike McGorty was one of them. We'll have Claude on here eventually. Dan Cricks will have on this call eventually. And they've become people that I can talk to if I'm stuck on things. It's why I joined Grow Business Network, because I realized, I'm by myself again. I need to not be doing that. It's Bill Glazer is a really popular marketer, says that entrepreneurs are the loneliest people on the planet. Your friends and family don't get it. They don't understand why you're doing it. Why don't you just go get a job? That was my dad, right? Like, why don't you just go get a job? Why doesn't Tim just go get a job? Like, what he could not comprehend why we would take the risks that we did. Friends and family don't usually get it. They don't understand the stresses that we go through. They don't understand, you know, why we're working late and all of that. So having other people that are in your shoes that you can at the very least just relate to, go out and have a drink or dinner with, just to be able to talk about what's going on in your business. And it's almost like therapy. Mike McGorty used to call our mastermind, he would call it group. He's like, I'm going to group.
Yeah.
Because he didn't need it. He was very successful. He didn't need us to tell him what to do in his business. What he needed was to talk about it. He needed to be able to say, this is the frustration I'm having right now, and I'm irritated by this. And you know what? I know what I'm supposed to do. All right, I'm going to put it to the top of my list. I'm going to make sure when I go back home, I do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big mistake that entrepreneurs make. And I think especially in the United States, we're very individualistic.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that you are handicapping yourself in the potential success in your business by not having a support system in place.
I would agree with that. I think I got, it took a while for me to figure that out because my family has all been really supportive. My family and friends are
Mhm.
supportive, and they're like, we believe in you. And they don't understand from being in it and understanding. They're just very supportive. And I went for a really long time without having any business owner friends. Like I didn't know any other business owners until I started going to networking groups. And I was like, oh yeah, it was just like one of those dumb things. Like, oh, there are people that are experiencing the same things as me. And it is so important to get, even if it's not like a mastermind group, like where you're sitting and talking to other people and getting that feedback, literally just being around other people, hearing their experiences. And it's important for perspective, right? It's like
Yes.
I didn't have any perspective. It was, again, isolated.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay, so this isn't just me. This is like there are so many people experiencing the same things that I am. Very important.
And you never know, we talk about that creativity and inspiration and luck and all of that. When you're around people and somebody just happens to mention something and you're like, you know what, that's a good idea. It's like you never would have gotten there on your own.
Mhm.
And it's not like you hired them to tell you what to do or that you followed some ad and took a course, and all of that is fine as well. But it's just hearing other people's experience and saying, you know what, I think that's something I could do.
Mhm.
I wonder if that would work in my business. And again, if you're all by yourself, you're going to very much believe that you're doing anything and everything you could be doing, and there's not possibly anything else you could be doing
Yep.
because you're only seeing it from your own
Yeah,
perspective.
all of my best ideas have come from my business owner friends. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Like I'm
feeling that.
I'm gonna take that and change it a little bit and say like change the homework a little bit and say
Yeah.
it's mine. Yeah.
We used to call it swipe and deploy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, oh, that looks really good. Like, I'm gonna use that.
And it's crazy where that'll come from too. Like businesses that have nothing to do with my industry, like
Yep.
completely different. And I'm like, that is a really good, like the foundational principles of that business plan or business idea are so good. I'm going to take it and it'll work for me because it's so good.
Yep.
Like doesn't matter what niche it's in, doesn't matter what business. So yeah, love that.
Yep, I love it too. And I think it just makes it more fun.
Yeah.
Like I have more fun doing like these calls with Duncan than if I was just doing it by myself.
Oh, thanks, Sally. Me too.
It does. It makes it more fun. For me, going to mastermind was fun. That was like play date. Like I've got a play date. Like Mike saw it as group. I saw it as play date.
Yeah.
So it does make it a lot more fun.
Yeah, that was what networking was for me in the beginning. I wasn't going to get clients. Like I had a client getting system in place, but I went to one to see what it was about. And I was like, oh, I need this. Like,
Yes.
I need to be around other business owners. I need to be around people that get it. So yeah, that was where I went to make friends.
Totally agree. All right, what's your next one?
This one hurts a little bit. Don't look at me like that. This one is a problem that I still deal with, but a lot of business owners deal with, and Allie makes fun of me about it all the time.
No, and only because I dealt with it so badly for so long.
Oh, man.
And I look at you and I'm like, I remember me when I did that.
It's so hard because okay. Let's just say what it is and give some context. So this one's a big mistake because it's so easy to make. It's so easy to justify as a business owner because
I like that you used the word justify.
Oh man, and it's called shiny object syndrome. All right. So what this is, oh yeah, Diane's like me. Yeah. So what this is you see something that that is being sold or marketed in a really, really good way. They have good sales and marketing, and it's being promoted as a thing that's going to give you what you're missing in your business. It's like, here's this new interesting thing that you need to make the difference. It's the thing that you're missing to unlock all the secrets, to use one of Allie's favorite copywriting words. You like secrets, right?
Yes, I like the word secrets a lot.
And it's selling a thing that's you don't really need. That's kind of the crux of this whole thing. It's a shiny object that you're like, oh, your brain is like, you need to go get this thing, but you don't really need it. But you buy it anyway because you're investing in yourself. It's a a thing that's going to increase your output as a business owner, or
These are
get
the
you more
justifications.
sales. Yeah, this is what you tell yourself. I'm like, oh, it's just the next tool that's gonna take me to the next level. And like I do this so much because I mean everybody does this, but I have a software company and there's always new plugins. There's always new oh yeah, look at that. Yep, yep.
I've been wanting to
Yeah.
buy those.
Same.
I have held back, but I've been wanting to buy those.
They're good. Those ads are good.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I want to tell stories about it.
Yes, yeah. They're
I need to buy it, and it's like $100 or
I
something
know.
like that.
And that's a
Yes.
perfect example because it's like a tangible thing too. It's like
Mm.
tangible things are always even harder for me to resist because
Mhm.
it's like a thing that I can put on my desk and like
Mhm.
other people will see it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I
So
buy books.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's shiny object syndrome, and it gets harder too because for me, it's like I can justify it financially too because it's a write-off. Like it's a business expense. There's a reason to buy it, and
It's practically free.
it's practically free. I'm going to save the money in taxes, and it's a great idea. So it's in some ways, if you can learn how to guide it, right? I think the instinct is good, right? The instinct to want to get better and to improve
Sure.
is good, but it's just misguided, right?
Yes.
It's like you don't fall into the traps that we all fall into, getting sold to and marketed to by expert marketers.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing lately is making a needs list. So like it's like going to the grocery store without having a list, or going to the
Yep.
grocery store when you're hungry, right? Like you don't want to go and just be susceptible to all the bright shiny packaging and all the marketing, right? It's like go with a list, go with intention. So in the beginning of the month, what I do now is I sit down and I do some thinking time. I write a list of everything that I need that month to make my business run and grow in the ways that I would like it to. And if I see something throughout the month that is not on that list, I go, I don't need it. And then the next month, I sit down and I think about it. And if I need it, if I really think I need it, I'll put it on the list. But generally speaking, that's eliminated most of that stuff for me. It's like every once in a while I still get caught. But because I'm being intentional and actually writing down what I need to get the job done, that's eliminated a lot of it. So
Yeah, and I think the danger of bright shiny object syndrome as well is that one, you get that promise and it feels good, like that dopamine hit when somebody's like, I'm going to reveal the secret of all secrets. And if you don't do this one thing, you're going to struggle for the rest of your life if you only knew this one trick, and like you're jumping to the next thing. And this can come in the form of even salespeople coming into your door saying that you need to be I almost said you need to be in the yellow pages. You need Facebook ads, you need to be on Google, you need to be whatever. And you're like, you know what? You're right. I'm not doing that thing. And I think the danger is, I think there's two big dangers. One is you're not always fully informed on what that thing can actually do for you. So you believe that it's going to be the end all be all. But it's not actually, and or it takes a lot more work than you thought it was going to be. Like there were so many kind of like business ideas that I bought early on that I'm like, this is going to be the easiest way to make money ever on the planet. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's work.
Yeah,
Like
this is like an actual business.
Do stuff.
Yeah.
So there's that. But two, it divides your attention away from what is actually working. So you're running after this new bright shiny object. You've got this thing that's working, but now because you're going to focus on the bright shiny object, you're going to move away from the thing that's working and try to do the new thing.
Yep.
And then you're going to move away from that thing and try to do the next thing. And what happens is you never get that consistency.
Yeah.
And I think I'm learning my biggest lesson that I've learned over the last couple of years is that consistency is what makes me the money.
Yep.
And I've gotten to the point where just this last year, I kind of came to a realization that I've been learning marketing. I've been studying marketing for 20 years now. It sounds like crazy, but it's been 20 years. I don't need to learn anymore. I just need to apply what I know and do it. And there are people that still need to learn. but they need a strategy to move forward on and just be consistent with that versus saying, ooh, what about like this thing over here and that thing over there and that thing over there. And it's one of the things I've learned even with my handmade clients. I'll tell them when I bring them into the program, I'm like, just do the Facebook stuff. We'll add other things when you're consistent with Facebook. But don't watch the Facebook training, then the website training, then the Instagram training, then this, then this, then this, then this, because you're spreading yourself all over the place and you never actually get anything done.
Yeah, it's the same analogy as like, people get their New Year's resolution and go to the gym and like do a whole full body workout and squats and like they do all the things and then they like fall off the wagon because they tried to do everything and their attention was split between all these different things and they get discouraged because none of them are working as well as they would if you just focused on one and were consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's exactly correct.
So my shiny object syndrome has evolved. I still have it, but now it's like
no.
Now it's at least so, and I'm again probably still justifying, and I'm sure Allie will tell me that that's the case, and that's fine.
That's what I'm here for.
I'll accept it, but what
because I can see it in you better than I can see it in me. But when I see you justify it, then I'm like, what have I been justifying? Like that's why you need other people. Right?
You're reading my label from the inside of your jar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can read mine. So I say now, here's my goal. So it's like instead of going off in this direction and getting this new thing, it's like here's my goal. Does this thing that I'm seeing, does this bright shiny object serve pushing me further toward this goal? Does that make sense? And like there are things that I get that I'm like, yes, this made a huge difference to me, and that's how I kind of sort it out. Right. It's like I don't just take action when I'm feeling emotional, right? All buying decisions are emotional. So like I see the thing and I'm like, great, let's think about it. I say, this is interesting to me.
Right.
Don't forget it. Don't say, no, I can't have it because it's a shiny object. Say like, okay, table this for later. Put it in my list of things to think about to see if it actually serves me.
Yeah, I've got a little folder. Like I use a program called Toby. Excuse me, to kind of organize my saved tabs and all of that. And I'll just plug them over there.
Yeah.
And if I really still need it, it's there. But I'm not buying it on impulse. And that's the problem with the justification, right? Because we all buy it on emotion and we justify with logic.
Yeah.
So we are victims of that in that we emotionally, we really, really want it. And I think that even comes back to what I was saying about being too optimistic. Emotionally, I really wanted to have a bookstore. Emotionally, I really wanted to have a pet related business.
Yep.
And so then I would try to justify it with logic. And my logic, I was molding around the emotion instead of cutting through the emotion. So I think taking time and stepping back, and allowing the emotion to hopefully cool off so that you can actually look at it objectively. I think that's important.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, so I still have it and I like lean into it by not shutting the door, but making sure that you rely on the logic to actually make the decision. I've been trying. Sometimes I still get caught, but I'm only human.
We're all human. All right, my next mistake is so the way I wrote it, I want to say it a little bit differently. When I first started the rabbit toy business, I believed I was in the business of manufacturing rabbit toys. That was my very first business. I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur was. Like I literally didn't even know the word when I started my business. And so I'm like, okay, we will make rabbit toys. And I did know that I had to sell them in order to have a business. But I think the biggest mistake that I made, and it was just ignorance, I didn't know any better. And once I knew better, to me, it was so glaringly obvious, is that I was in the business of marketing and selling rabbit toys. I was not in the business of making rabbit toys. And I think that is a huge mistake that business owners make. And if you've ever read the book E-Myth, I definitely recommend the book E-Myth. I can't think of Gerber or it's usually right there and I can point to it, but it's packed up in a box. Michael Gerber, I think it is.
That sounds right.
So in E-Myth, he talks about the difference between being the technician, we just talked about this and we knew the word that he was using, but now I can't remember it. Anyhow, so he uses, I think in the book a lot, the example of being an auto repair person, right? You know how to fix cars. You're fantastic at fixing cars. You decide you're going to go off and start your own business fixing cars. And you believe that's the business. Be the best auto mechanic possible. But that's not the business. The business is selling and getting customers. And he talks a lot about formalizing it, being on an operational side, just, knowing what all the operations are in the business, managing employees and all of that. And that's true. That definitely doesn't need to be ignored. But it's like you could be the best auto mechanic on the planet and be broke and homeless because you have no customers. Or you could be a mediocre auto mechanic and rich. And the difference is not in the ability of the auto mechanic, but it's in the ability to market your business and market your services. And I get frustrated when I see people dismiss marketing, when they dismiss advertising. Oh, that's not, we just depend on word of mouth. That's the scariest line that I could hear. We just depend on word of mouth. That means you don't know where your business is coming from. You don't know where your customers are coming from. And if that word of mouth dries up, you have no idea how to keep your business afloat. And so you do have to produce the product that you promised to produce, right? So you do have to fix people's car, and you shouldn't be crappy at it. You should be good at it. But that is not the key. The key is getting people into your shop, buying your product and service.
Yep.
So my job is not to teach marketing, it's to market my marketing services. My job with the rabbit toy business was to market my rabbit toys. The job with the bookstore was to market the bookstore. The job of the farmer's market manager was to get people to show up to the farmer's market.
Yep.
Because without that, and that's where I almost feel like your business is just a shell without that. If you don't have money coming in, you don't actually have a business. And so that's your number one job. And
That's the one that you can do better than anybody else.
Exactly.
Right? That
because,
was the biggest realization for me and it was recent, right? Like I've only considered myself a marketer for probably the past like 2 years. And the biggest realization for me was it's like, that's my job.
Yep.
That's my job. And even beyond that, there are other people that are going to be better at the thing that I thought my job was, which is actually making and delivering video and photo content. It's like, there are people out there that are better at that than me, but nobody's going to be better at marketing my business than I am because it's mine.
Yes.
Right. That was the biggest thing.
You've got the biggest vested interest in it.
Yeah.
You are your brand. You are the one that can, tell the story.
Yep.
And I think that people who insist that they shouldn't be worried about the marketing need to get a job.
Yeah.
Then find an auto repair shop with an owner who cares about the health of the business. Because without that side of it, you don't have an income. So and I get people all the time come to me, oh, I have a business, but I'm just not good at marketing. Well, you better get pretty darn good at it pretty darn quickly, or you should just quit and let somebody else do it for you. And a lot of times I'll see people online that say, hey, I have this business, it's great, I just need somebody to do all my marketing for me. And I'm like, you don't have a business, you have a thing you're good at doing, and you want somebody else to put all the work in to be successful. I'm not going to name names, but I had a realtor, not the one that's on our call today. I had a realtor reach out to me and say, hey, Allie, if you do all of my marketing for me, all of my social media, I'll give you a percentage of every house that I sell.
And to clarify, it was like, I need more business.
Yeah, I need more business.
Yeah.
I have 0 listings right now. My broker insists that we have at least 1 listing at a time, at all times. I don't have one. I'm desperate. You fix this problem for me is basically what he's saying. And I'm not going to pay you anything until you have thoroughly fixed the problem. I'm like, then I'll just go get my own realtor license. You know what I mean? Like, why do I need you? If I can bring in the business, why do I need you? So it's just a huge mistake that people make, that they are not prioritizing the bringing in of business, the marketing of their business. They're so in love with the part that they are good at, and they can't see that their other job, otherwise you don't have a business. If you're not going to do the marketing, you don't have a business. Work for somebody else.
Yep, well said.
Okay, your turn.
Next, my
Yep.
turn. Okay. My next mistake that business owners make is not listening to their customers, right? So this is one that I see a lot, being in the marketing industry and doing things like generating leads for people and sending out emails and doing some of that forward-facing marketing for people. They'll get feedback from customers like, I'm confused about this step of the process, or you know, they won't get reached out to for 3 or 4 days, and then they'll get called and be like, hey, I already found somebody else. And the business owner, the particular business owner that I'm thinking about in this example, their response to that was, well, you know, it wasn't to listen, take that information in, and make a change in their own process. It was to say, well, let's move on to the next customer. It's like, if you don't take in that feedback from people, whatever it is, and use it to adjust your approach and your process, you're making a huge mistake. And this can be, you know, it doesn't just have to be in the front end of the marketing and the sales, right? So if you're fulfilling your product and somebody has a problem, or if there's, you know, they leave a bad review, right? Like that happens sometimes. If you don't look at that and think first, what does this say about me and my business? I think you're coming about it from the wrong perspective. Obviously, some people are just like crappy people and they're leaving bad reviews for whatever reason. But the first instinct should be, what does this mean about me and my business, and how can I take this in and make some adjustments?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I think sometimes people's ego gets a little bruised by negative feedback, and they put up a defense mechanism and say, well, that person's just an idiot. They don't know what they're talking about.
And that might be true.
And it might be true, but again, that awareness, right? That self-awareness to stop and say, okay, they might just be being a complainy pants. But is there any truth to it? Is there a way we can do this better? And my VA, like, she's really, really great about so many things, but she's definitely jumps on, oh, this customer's just being annoying. I'm like, yeah, but why are they being annoying, and where did they fall through the cracks? And what information did they not have? And were they frustrated because they couldn't find this button, and where could we put the button where it's in a better place, you know? So she'll come to me with the complaints, and then I turn it around and say, okay, how can we use this to make a better product? Yeah, I think it's a big danger to just dismiss everybody. I had a, it wasn't called this, but it was basically a We Hate Allie Facebook group created from some of my very early handmade sellers.
I don't know why. That's like, I want that to happen so bad for me. That would give me so much inspiration.
But even in that, you know, it would have been easy for me to say, like, screw all them. I can't believe they said, and it was all there was one bad seed in the group that was, you know, creating friendships with people and spreading information around that was not true, not accurate. She just basically poisoned the well. It was one person poisoned the well. And instead of me just kind of beating my chest and saying, like, well, they're just being that way, I'm like, all right, what can I learn from this, that this doesn't happen in the future? How do I create maybe a little bit more separation between me and my clients? Because that was part of it. They all thought that they were my best friend. And then it became like a friend group, and they were mad because, I guess, I don't know, because I was like in the center of it, right?
Too many feelings.
Yeah, there's too much feelings in it. And I'm like, all right, we need to separate this out a little bit, and we need to be able to kick people out of the group faster. If we see that they're in there poisoning things, we need to be able to get them out quicker. We need to have rules. And so even though it's not about like, oh, you have to listen to your customer and capitulate to everything that they say. Right? The customer isn't always right, and you get to decide who you're going to do business with and who you're not going to do business with. It's your business. You get to decide. But at the same time, if you're hearing something and it's negative, to just dismiss it is it's a huge mistake, because
Yep.
it's gonna happen, it's gonna keep happening.
Yeah, and listening to your customers too, there's so many, it taps into so many different things. Like you said something there about you get to choose who you do business with, and listening to your customers and how your potential customers in the sales conversation they'll throw up red flags, and it's like they'll tell you if they're the kind of person that you want to work
Yep.
with or not. And like that's listening to your customer.
Yep.
It's like there's
Like,
so
nope,
many.
don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I have a list of things that I'm like, oh, this person said this. I know that it's going to make the process difficult. And like, if you're not aware, if you're not listening and keeping track of those things, you'll never learn, and you'll keep running into those like
Yep.
nightmare clients and accepting those nightmare clients. Yeah.
Yep.
Listen
Oh.
to your clients.
Yeah, listen, yeah. Not investing in yourself. So we talked about bright, shiny object syndrome.
This is like the best justification. I'm investing in me.
Myself.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, like this is, yes, this is a numbers game, right? But like, so is weight loss and working out. You know, that's a numbers game. How often are you going to work out, and like calories in and all of that good stuff. But it's also a mental game, right? So it's really easy for somebody to say, oh, it's easy to lose weight. All you have to do is eat fewer calories than what you bring in. But that's difficult, right? It's like, if you don't have the mental discipline, if you don't have the education, if you don't have even the support, it can be a difficult thing to do. And it's the same thing with a business. If you are not investing in yourself, your own mental health, your own education, I even like investing in positivity. Like, even though I said too much optimism, it's not optimism about the business, but it's just like, I can do this, right? Like I've done, and I do this with Willow. I write mine out, but I have Willow do hers out loud, but we do affirmations all the time. And I'll write things like, I am the shark. I am a marketing genius. Like, I write this in a book, and I take that time to invest in me and my mental state. When Willow's down, I have her stand up and put her hands on her hips in a superhero pose and say, I am the shark, and I'm smart. I'm good at what I do. And all of that kind of stuff is taking some time. It doesn't have to be a monetary investment, but it's taking some time to invest in you and your mental health and your state of mind. Not just in marketing and business, but investing in you as a person, that you're a stronger person, that you're a more confident person. I think confidence is huge, 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 huge. I see a lack of confidence a lot with my handmade clients. And so this week we're doing a Facebook Live challenge just to get them out of their comfort zone. And taking that challenge is a way for them to invest in themselves. And I've had people come back and say, I'm more confident at work now because of what I did during this challenge, and because of what I've learned through your program. So it's a mental game, and you've got to treat it like a mental game, and you've got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in your health, your well-being, your mental state, and your business education and marketing education. And always be improving yourself, because the common denominator of your business is you. And if you're constantly chasing bright, shiny objects, right? If you're constantly making certain mistakes over and over again, you've got to make some investments in yourself, and really, again, have that awareness of, why am I doing this? And what new habits do I need to create? And what new information do I need to learn? And not being afraid to spend some money. Like, I literally have nothing to sell you guys, so I'm not selling you on anything, but there are times where I spent $2,000 to go to a marketing conference, and I was surrounded by these marketing people. I spent $400 a month on that mastermind I was in, and I couldn't afford it, but I did it anyhow, because I needed to invest in myself. And I also needed to have some skin in the game, that like, I'm putting this money in, I've got to take it seriously and make it work. And that's some of that mental work there. All the ways that you can invest in yourself, you need to do it if you own a business.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast on the way here this morning, and they were talking about how grit is one of the through lines in success in business and sports and all that different stuff. And there's a lot that goes into that. It's like confidence and all that fun stuff. So it's nice to hear you say that. It like affirms a lot of the things that I think and agree with as well. And one of the ways that I try to improve my mental state and my confidence and all that is take a look at some of the things that are making me feel the opposite of what I need to feel and trying to figure out how I can turn them into a positive thing, like an affirming thing. And one of the things that I've done recently is, I think I told you, whenever I get a lead, I have it send a thing that says you're a marketing genius. It would always make me like, I would get nervous when leads come in. And I know that that's weird, right? It's like potential clients, but my whole business model up until recently was performance based, and like I need to generate leads for people, and if I don't generate enough, it's a huge problem. And you have all this pressure from the lead generation portion of things, and it was seeping into my own business. Like my own leads, when they would come in, I was getting nervous about it and I was feeling negatively about it. And like that's not, you don't want to approach that, like that's success, right? So how do you take things that I don't know, examine some of the things that are affecting you negatively and see if you can turn them into a positive. So now whenever I get a lead, it sends me a text that says you're a marketing genius, and I feel really good about myself. So yeah.
Well, what I do is I'll look at something like, oh, I ran these ads and they didn't work.
Yeah.
And instead of like spiraling into, oh my gosh, it didn't work, I go into like, okay, so now I know that didn't work. Like, and I have to be very intentional about that. I sit and I'm like, okay, Allie, I know this sucks, but
What is it?
now I know that didn't work, but what did work about it? Okay, a lot of people did see the ad, so maybe the audience was correct, but it's not the right offer, and so I would just try to see what I can learn from it. Everything, I really had to step away from this mentality that and I have a vendetta against public schools. Like I always go like, public school. And one of the reasons is because public school taught us that, and school in general teaches us that it's pass or fail, right? You either pass a test or you fail a test. And if you fail, you're a failure because the rest of the class moves on and you never get the chance to fix that failure. You just have to keep moving on, believing that you're a failure and you're not good at something. And that's not how the real world is at all. And so when we run an ad campaign and it doesn't work, it's easy to kind of give ourselves an F and say, I failed at this, I'm not good at it, because that's how we've been conditioned to think about tasks. And so I've stepped away from that and thought, nothing in the real world is pass or fail. Or if it is, there's very, very little that's pass or fail. It's all learning.
It's an understanding of what failure is needs to change.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that's such a huge realization. And like I lived like that before I really understood what it was. Like I really love learning new things. That's part of my problem with shiny object syndrome. Is like I love new things, and my favorite part of that whole process is the beginning when you suck at it. It's like that is the fun part for me, because that's where all of the discovery and the learning and the knowledge comes in. And I've always enjoyed failure. I've always enjoyed that process, and it's benefited me well in business. But it's interesting how things change, right? And so when it's my own failure, totally fine. When it's like client's failure, if I fail a client, or at least in a way that I perceive as failure, it was like huge negative, and it started to change my perception of failure. And I had to be, if I wasn't aware of it, I would have just continued to go down that road, and it would have like changed who I was fundamentally as a person. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, for me, I was an A student. I was a straight A student for most of it.
I was not.
And that I was going to say, I can almost guarantee you that you were not a straight A student. I was very, very curious about that, because that was part of my identity. I'm one of the smart kids, right? Like, and there was this weird culture in my dad's side of the family that like the smart people in the family were the ones that got the most praise. So if you were going to be an important person, that meant you had to be smart. And so I bring home my grade card and my dad would be like, what's this be? What is this doing here? And I'm like, well, you know, it was history. It was fine, whatever. Had a hard time memorizing dates. And like, he's like, all right, but what are you doing about it? Right. And he wasn't like, it's not like because my dad was barely ever there, but he was there enough to inspect the report card. And so I took it very, very personally. I got a C in chemistry and I about imploded. I quit the class because I didn't need to have it. I didn't need to take, I had already taken 3 years of science. All I wanted was another year of science. I just wanted no, I'd had 4 years of science.
We both did bad in chemistry.
Oh,
the only reason I passed
chemistry is terrible.
The teacher was gonna get in a lot of trouble because like everyone in that class failed. And she like bumped everybody up to like 60s or whatever. It was like, yeah, it's fine. You know, don't worry
No,
about it.
I think everybody in my class got bad grades too.
Yeah.
And then I was raked across the coals by another teacher who said, oh, you get a little bit of a challenge and you quit.
Yeah.
And he had me crying in front of a study hall.
What a
Like
teacher.
I'm just bawling. And he's like, I can't believe, and he was my favorite teacher. He was my biology teacher, which I love biology. I hated chemistry. But yeah, no, I put a lot of importance on those A's. And when I first started business and there were failures, I had no skills to handle that. I didn't know how to handle that failure. I didn't know what I perceived as failure. And so it took me a long time to kind of reverse that and say, no, the A's and the B's and the F's and all of that, that was the fake thing. The real thing is you're learning the whole time.
Yep.
And I have this suspicion that some of the best, most successful entrepreneurs, and I've seen it in my own graduating class, those that went out and actually did stuff entrepreneurially, C students.
Yeah.
And maybe even F students, some of them. It was not the A students. The A students went into academia, got very safe jobs. They were not entrepreneurs. I'm kind of in this weird position, right? Like I want the safety of getting the A, but I also really want to take the risks. And so I had to teach myself to be not okay with I was always okay with taking the risk. It was my response to the failure.
Yeah.
That was like
changing your understanding of
yes,
what failure means.
Yes. And now I don't even see it as failure. I'm like, if it didn't work, I learned something. If I quit my business because I wasn't good at it, well, then I did that for a while. You know, like I don't even know, like guilt and failure are two words that I just don't even want to have in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right. What do I have to feel guilty about? And what do I have to feel failure about? You know, we're all learning, we're all evolving as people.
I think it's important to understand both sides of it too. And that's why one of the things I like about our friendship a lot is that we're similar in a lot of ways, but the ways that we're different, we're kind of like coming closer to the center on, if that makes sense. And we can learn from the opposite ends of the spectrum. Because the thing about failure and the thing about how I was growing up in school was like, it's like oppositional defiance disorder almost. Cause like the system was like
pathological demand avoidance.
Sure.
That's my new words. I'm like, that's me.
So it was like, this is the way that you need to be successful. And I was like, no, not doing that. Like, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it my own way. I'm going to do my own thing. And it benefits me now. But what it will do still to this day is like, if I don't keep it in check, is it will keep me from being aware. It's like, no, it's like I'm telling myself that I know the way to do it. So like, screw you.
Right.
And that's not the right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And not maybe taking on the,
it's like personal responsibility almost of, I don't know, maybe that's not the right.
Well, I guess I'm hearing it from the point of view of like, there are proven ways to do things.
Yeah.
Like 8-point text.
Yeah. But I'm more
left adjusted. In
Arial font.
In Arial font.
And I'm
like,
more likely to say, no, I'm going to do it my way, even if that's the right way. And like, that's a detriment sometimes because I would rather fail and learn myself than just take the path of least resistance and like do it the right way. So I have to keep that in check.
And I get that. And I think I've had those periods of like pushing against like marketing standards and things like that. I think that I have been burned enough times of I'm going to I'm going to game the system
Sure.
on this, or I'm gonna I'm like, all right, fine, I'm just gonna stay mostly within the system. Because it hurts. It hurts, but we accomplished it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I also have so in school I did what I was told, but I always was resentful and thought it unjust. I hated school. I got A's, but hated it because I was like, teachers are wardens and everybody here is telling me what to do and I don't want to listen to them and I'll do this and I'll get my A, but like screw you all. Like I really hated it. So I think that's interesting that like you
Different
said no.
responses to it.
Yeah, we had both had the same impulse to it, but we
my
had
thing
different
was like,
responses.
it was like, why? Who are you to tell me what I should learn? It's like I'm here. I would get in trouble for reading. You know, I'm a reader, so I would read whatever. You know, the Walt Whitman biographies in middle school, and they'd be like, "Don't read that. Read this AR book that's 30 pages long." And I'm like, why are we having this conversation?
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me right now. Let me read my book.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, but anyway.
All right, well, we are at an hour. Real quick, my last one was not delegating. Mistake people make is trying to do it all themselves and not delegating to other people. For me, I don't like having employees, so I brought in a VA and she manages me. But trying to do it all my own, I definitely like with this move, I've been almost completely hands off. And she's handled everything, which is great. And what's your last one?
Where'd you find your VA?
So my best VAs, I've used Upwork before. But my best VAs have all come from within my program. So they're people that have been through my program that are like, hey, can I help you with this? Can I help you with that? Amy right now, she was one of my clients and she just started doing everything for me. And I'm like, maybe I should pay you for this because I really appreciate that. And I've just had another one. So she was the second. My first VA was fantastic, but she had to leave for health reasons. So then I have her, and then I have another lady that's in my program, that's like practically begging, like, what else can I do? I'm sure there's some way that I can help you. But I've had Filipino, and I do have a resource if you want it, Adam, that some guys that will do like tech work and some basic customer service stuff that are in the Philippines, and they're like $10-15 an hour.
Yeah, I've had success with Support Shepherd. They're like a headhunting agency, so they do kind of the vetting process for you, which is nice, but you pay for it. It's like 3 or 4 grand up for like the fee for them to find somebody. And then it's like $1,400 for a full-time VA a month, which is like great deal. And you'll get people with like MBAs, they know how to do payroll, they're like vetted people, which is nice. And if that person doesn't work out, they'll place somebody else without making you pay again. So I've used them, and they kind of smooth out that like process of trying different people out.
Yeah, because that's the problem with Upwork is you're interviewing people, but I got my bookkeeper on Upwork. She's fantastic. I interviewed 3 different ones and she's cheap.
Yeah.
She's cheap and she's fantastic.
I love Upwork. I find like really highly technical people on Upwork too. Like I had my animator, our first job that we did that had a 3D animated character. I found somebody on Upwork and it's like $20 an hour for something in the States that you can pay 150 easily to an animator. They did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I have a Bonita Springs based VA that I'm interviewing Friday, but I think her rate's just crazy high.
Yep.
And then I've interviewed probably half a dozen people, and it's like these kids that are 24 wanting 60-70 grand out the gate. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, that's
sometimes the best place to start, for me, the best place to start was just giving them a task to do. And that's what I like about Upwork.
Yep.
It's like, hey, can you do this thing for me? And then they do it. And I'm like, oh, wow, you did that really well. Or no, you did that really like in a sucky way.
Yep.
And I don't want to work with you further.
trial task.
And at the very least, if you're stuck on something, like for me, I would get stuck on technology. I'd be like, there's a thing that I have to do, and I just spent the last 4 hours reading how to do that thing, and I still don't get it. Like, jump to Upwork and just put a job listing and put it out there. I had a guy, I paid him $50, and I swear he had it done in less than 5 minutes.
Yes. Mhm.
Best $50 I ever
Yeah,
spent.
it's
Because I was
insane.
spending hours and I couldn't get it fixed.
Yeah.
And so I learned to hire quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than spending all that time.
Yeah.
getting it
And
done.
That's a good point. I think I'm wasting a lot of time right now trying to find local representation, and it's just my biggest thing was like, I come from the healthcare world where people hire VAs usually from Philippines, and there's like big language barriers. I would need to have someone who can communicate clearly.
Yeah, definitely check out Support Shepherd. That's kind of their thing, is like making the process of hiring a VA more streamlined and making sure that the person that they find for you is going to tick all those boxes. Like, you go through a thing and tell them what you need, and they find it. So,
And you said $1,400 a month for a full-time VA?
that's what so my friend and business partner Benjamin has a VA for his multiple things that he has going on, and I think she's at $1,400 for the month. Yeah.
Good.
Yep. And like
And a lot of the Filipino VAs, technology wise, that I haven't had really a language barrier with any of them. The only thing I don't let them do is write stuff.
Yeah.
Because they understand English, but they don't speak like Americans. And so that's the one thing that I back off on.
Yep.
And I also double check them on graphic design, because there's a very specific design that I can almost point at and say, somebody who's Filipino made that.
Yeah.
Like
Same,
that is
same
not-
in India. It's like we use a lot of Indian designers for web design and things like that, and they just it's like the way they put things together is aesthetically very Indian.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing wrong with it,
Right.
but I'm like, oh yeah, that's
but it's
Indian
not
design.
American. Yeah.
You guys do your own
so-
design for like your Facebook posts and stuff like that, or is that outsourced as well?
I do my own for Facebook. Usually I'm not doing designs. I mean, like the stuff I do in the group, I'll just do it in Canva or whatever. But for client work, most of the time, web design, I have a guy that I use. He has a company in India, and he does all the web design and the ads and stuff like that.
90 to 95% of your Facebook posts should have no design to them whatsoever,
Yep.
other than the picture that you shot.
Yep.
If you are using graphics, you are boring your audience. You're waving a flag saying, I'm a business trying to sell you products. And that just does not work on social media.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, you want to do your last one real quick there, Duncan, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, just don't spend money without knowing without having a clear idea of what success is, right? So I talked to a guy recently who was running ads, Google ads, and he's like, I got one customer from it. I spent like $200. I just don't know if I should keep spending money. And I was like, okay, well, that's a very easy question to answer. And I think you should have thought about that and answered that question before you started spending money. It's like, how much can I afford to spend per customer? Like, that is a very simple question that every business owner should ask and understand what that cost is. And before you go to spend money on ads, it's like, you need to know so you can answer that question. And you would be surprised how many business owners do that. They're like, yeah, we need to spend money on marketing and advertising. Let's do it. Let's move. Like, their bias is for action, which is good.
Yeah.
But action without the knowledge or the information going in means you could waste a lot of money.
Yep.
Even
No, I think it's, you said you'd be amazed. I'm no longer amazed.
Same.
It's almost everybody. I would say over 90%
Yep.
of business owners have no idea what a successful marketing campaign means.
Yep.
I would say 90% of business owners don't know what marketing is giving them results, or if any.
And it's like the thing that's crazy to me is like, even good results, right? So I've run ads for people before, and we got, you fight to try and get the budget out of them to make the ads work. And like, we're running an ad for $800 for the month or whatever, and we get 2 clients. And they're like, oh, it's just not getting us a lot of results. I'm like, okay, the last time you ran ads, you didn't get any clients. Is that correct? Like, yes. Okay, this time we got 2 clients. It's like, okay, we spent $400 per client. Is that too expensive? They're like, no, that's great. I'm like, okay, so we should spend more money to get more clients. Like, if we spent 400 times 10, we're going to get 10 clients. They're like, oh yeah, but that's way too much. Like, I don't understand what's
Yeah,
happening here.
I was gonna say, that's the other thing is that they see marketing
Yeah.
as an expense,
Yeah.
not as an
It's an
income
investment.
producer.
Yeah, we're
Right.
spending money to literally get you money. It's like, we're gonna spend that $4,000 and it's gonna make you 20 or 30. How does that sound?
Right, it's like saying if I had a machine that every time you put in a $1 bill is spat out a $5 bill.
yeah.
And you're saying, well, I can't afford to put more than like $3 or $4 into
I
it.
just
But
had,
yes,
yeah,
you just keep putting them in and they just,
Yeah, yeah.
bigger ones come out. You
Yep.
can afford that.
I
and now
just
they can't.
had a client leave me because this exact scenario, they left after 3 months and were like, oh, it's just not really producing as much as we thought it would. And I was like, okay, that's totally fine. My advice to you would be to increase your budget. Like that's the wall that we keep hitting. And then they came back to me because they went with some other company and they're spending, I think it's like $950 a month in software fees and $2,500 a month in Google ads because this company sold them on that. They're like looking for the solution. And they came to me a month in and they're like, we haven't gotten any leads from this $2,500 that we spent. I'm like, I don't know how to help you now. They've signed
Right.
like a year-long contract with this company. And I'm like, my advice was to increase your budget, but on the platform where it was working. And it's
Right.
like, I don't know what the disconnect is there, but it's like they were spending money, getting results. It just wasn't enough. And I was like, spend more. And they left me where it was working and went to somebody else where now it's not working.
Now, did they spend more with this other one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what kills me
I'm
too,
like,
is people will say like, well, I can't afford like a coach or anything like that, but then they'll go out and they'll hire somebody to run ads and they're dropping $3,000 and getting no
hundreds.
results.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh
it's
my
like
God.
thousands of dollars more than they were spending with
Yeah.
me. And I was like, you left something that was working to spend more money on something that's not. Like, I don't know how to help you. I'm really sorry.
I think that's our biggest challenge as
Yep.
marketers, and trying to help small businesses. I
Yep.
think that's our biggest challenge.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you guys. I know we went a little bit over, but the longer we sit in here, the more everybody else is putting boxes in the back of the truck, hopefully. And that's fewer boxes we have to put in.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. We will be back next week with a hot seat with Benjamin, right, Duncan?
Is that next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's next week. So you might want to tell him.
I gotta text him now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you forget. So yes, and I should have, because I definitely won't be able to do a presentation, but I should be able to be on and all of that.
Cool.
Figure out where my computer's going to be and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right, cool. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye. You gotta click the button
Why?
to wake it up.
It falls asleep?
Yes.